What if I told you that the first global war in history was fought in just 7 years? A war that spanned continents, involved countless empires, and altered the course of history forever. This is the story of World War I, an unprecedented conflict that shook the very foundations of the world. The build-up. It was a time of great change, and the world was on the cusp of a new era. The early 20th century saw rapid technological advancements, rising nationalism, and the expansion of imperial ambitions. Europe, the center of global power, was divided into two major alliances: the Allies, primarily consisting of France, Britain, and Russia, and the Central Powers, led by Germany, Austria-Hungary, and Italy. However, tensions were simmering beneath the surface. The assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand, heir to the Austro-Hungarian throne, in Sarajevo on June 28, 1914, would serve as the spark that ignited the powder keg of Europe. What started as a localized event in a small corner of the world would quickly spiral into the deadliest conflict the world had ever seen. The outbreak of war? Within weeks of the assassination, the web of alliances began to pull nations into conflict. Austria-Hungary declared war on Serbia, and soon Russia, Germany, and France joined in. Britain followed suit as Germany violated Belgian neutrality, leading to the declaration of war. The world had entered into an era of global conflict, World War I. The war would last from 1914 to 1918, with millions of soldiers and civilians caught in its deadly grasp. The war didn't just involve European powers, it spread across the globe. Colonies in Africa, Asia, and the Pacific were drawn into the fight, and the war's impact would be felt on every continent. The Western Front, a stalemate of blood and iron. On the Western Front, the war took on a grueling and devastating nature. Both sides dug in, creating vast networks of trenches stretching from the North Sea to Switzerland. The brutal conditions in the trenches, mud, rats, and disease, became legendary. Soldiers were stuck in a deadly stalemate where every inch of land was fiercely contested. Battles like Verdun and the Somme became infamous for their immense loss of life, with no decisive victories. The weapons of war had evolved, bringing with them unprecedented destruction. Machine guns, tanks, and poison gas turned battlefields into scenes of unimaginable horror. The stalemate on the Western Front led to the development of new tactics and weapons in an effort to break the deadlock. The Eastern Front, a war of movement. While the Western Front was characterized by static trench warfare, the Eastern Front was a different story. Here, the Russian Empire, struggling with internal problems, faced off against Germany and Austria-Hungary in a war of movement. The vast distances of Eastern Europe created opportunities for rapid advances and retreats, but the war on this front was no less brutal. The Eastern Front also saw the downfall of empires. The Russian Empire, plagued by revolution and internal strife, eventually pulled out of the war in 1917 after the Bolshevik Revolution. This shift had profound consequences for the Allied powers as they lost a major Eastern Front ally and faced a newly emboldened Germany on the Western Front. The war at sea. The war didn't just rage on land, it extended to the seas as well. The British Royal Navy, with its dominance of the world's oceans, was vital to the Allied war effort. However, Germany sought to challenge this supremacy with its submarine warfare campaign. German U-boats began sinking merchant ships and military vessels alike, cutting off vital supplies to Britain and other Allied nations. The Battle of Jutland in 1916 marked the largest naval engagement of the war, with both sides suffering heavy losses. While the British Navy retained control of the seas, the German strategy of unrestricted submarine warfare would eventually push the United States into the war. The war in the air. The skies, once untouched by conflict, soon became a new battlefield. Airplanes initially used for reconnaissance were quickly adapted for combat. Dogfights between fighter planes became a symbol of modern warfare, and aces like Manfred von Richthofen, the Red Baron, gained legendary status. Bombers were introduced to strike deep behind enemy lines, and air raids on cities became a terrifying new form of warfare. The introduction of airplanes marked the beginning of a new era in military tactics and heralded the importance of air superiority in future conflicts. The home front, a war of industry and innovation. While soldiers fought on the front lines, the home front was equally critical to the war effort. The Industrial Revolution had created new methods of mass production, and nations mobilized their economies to support the war. Factories churned out weapons, ammunition, and supplies at an unprecedented scale. Innovation and technology also advanced rapidly during the war. The development of new weapons such as tanks, poison gas, and airplanes transformed the way wars would be fought. The war also saw advancements in medicine, communications, and logistics that would have lasting impacts on the future. Women, too, played a significant role in the war effort. With men away fighting on the front lines, women took on jobs in factories as nurses and in other essential roles. The war marked a turning point in the role of women in society, as their contributions were crucial to the Allied victory. The United States joins the fight. In 1917, after years of trying to stay neutral, the United States entered the war. Several factors contributed to this decision, including German unrestricted submarine warfare and the interception of the Zimmermann telegram, in which Germany sought an alliance with Mexico against the United States. The entry of the United States brought fresh manpower and resources to the Allied powers. American troops known as the American Expeditionary Forces, AEF, played a crucial role in tipping the balance of power in favor of the Allies. The fresh troops bolstered the tired and war-weary soldiers of the other Allied nations. The end of the war and its aftermath. By 1918, the war was approaching its end. Germany, exhausted and facing the collapse of its allies, began to retreat. The Allies launched a series of offensives, breaking through the German lines and forcing the enemy to seek an armistice. On November 11, 1918, the war officially ended with the signing of the Armistice of Compiègne. The war had claimed an estimated 16 million lives, with millions more wounded. Entire generations were lost, and the political landscape of Europe was forever altered. The aftermath of World War I would reshape the world. The Treaty of Versailles, signed in 1919, imposed harsh penalties on Germany, including territorial losses, military restrictions, and reparations. The treaty's punitive measures would lay the groundwork for future resentment and unrest in Germany, eventually leading to the rise of Adolf Hitler and the outbreak of World War II just 2 decades later. The legacy of World War I. The impact of World War I was far-reaching. The Austro-Hungarian Empire, the Ottoman Empire, and the Russian Empire all collapsed, giving rise to new nations and shifting the balance of power in Europe. The League of Nations was established in an attempt to prevent future conflicts, though it would ultimately fail to stop the rise of aggression in the coming decades. The war also changed the way people viewed warfare. The horrors of trench warfare, chemical weapons, and the sheer scale of destruction led many to question the morality and futility of war. The lessons learned from World War I would shape the strategies and ideologies of nations in the years to come. But perhaps the most lasting legacy of World War I is the sense of a world forever changed. The war marked the end of an era of relative peace and stability in Europe, ushering in a century of global conflict, economic upheaval, and political turmoil. Conclusion: World War I was the world's first truly global war. In just 7 years, it changed the face of the world and set the stage for the events of the 20th century. Its impact can still be felt today in the borders of nations, the rise and fall of empires, and the lessons learned about the dangers of unchecked nationalism and militarism. If you found this story of World War I fascinating, don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more in-depth explorations of history. Like this video and share it with your friends so they can learn about the world's first global war too. Let's keep uncovering the stories that shaped our world.